Welcome to the silence before the storm. Welcome to the edge of revelation, to the moment the shadows speak and the mask is dropped. If you've made it here, it's no accident. You are not here to be comforted. You are here to be awakened. And once you wake, there is no going back. Before we dive into the depths of what has been hidden and what now must rise, remember this. If you find power in these words, if something burns in you while you hear them, hit that like button and subscribe. Why? Because voices like these don't echo unless you help carry them. And if what you hear sparks something real, leave a comment. Tell the others you're done pretending. Now, let's begin. They always warned them, didn't they? About what would happen if the protector ever let go. They said it like it was a myth, a whisper, a bedtime story, laced in fear. Don't push them. Don't take too much. Don't go too far. But warnings are only as loud as the silence that follows. And some people mistake calm for weakness. They think restraint is surrender. They thought the one who held the line was soft because they didn't strike first. How wrong they were. Because now, the secret's out. You weren't just protected. You were shielded by a force darker and deeper than any enemy dared imagine. You were held by something ancient, something patient, something capable. And when that something finally stood up, when it finally showed its face, every liar, every manipulator, every whispering serpent who played behind the veil went silent. Not because they were caught, but because they were seen. They looked into the eyes of the protector and realized they weren't looking into protection. They were staring into punishment. See, everyone wants the benefits of strength until strength stops pretending. Everyone praises peace until peace puts on armor. And now, your protector didn't just rise, they unleashed. Not in chaos, not in rage, but in the cold, deliberate silence of a storm that knows its target and never misses. You've been walking with a giant disguised as a shadow, a blade pretending to be a shield, and they played games around you thinking you were just someone to be used, dismissed, broken. They thought your silence meant surrender. They thought your kindness was ignorance. They didn't know that you had a guardian carved in silence and sharpened in suffering. And now the tables don't turn. They flip. Everything they built on your back, every empire they thought would stand on your silence, every chain they wrapped around your hands with a smile, it's all crumbling. Slowly, loudly, righteously. Because your protector isn't just someone who stood in front of you. They're the one who stood behind the storm, waiting, watching, growing darker with every betrayal, colder with every fake smile, and sharper with every overlooked warning. And now that protector, your protector, just became their worst nightmare. Not because they're evil, but because they stopped pretending to be nice. Understand this. Real power doesn't rage. Real power doesn't scream. Real power waits. It watches. It learns. It remembers everything. And when the time comes, it moves with the quiet precision of someone who knows that mercy is no longer an option. The secret wasn't just that you had a protector. The secret was that they let everyone think they weren't watching, that they weren't ready, that they wouldn't strike. But now, that illusion is shattered, and they're terrified, not because they see a monster, but because they finally see the truth. And the truth is colder than any threat. The truth is, you were never alone. Every time they underestimated you, they were adding another crack to the dam. And now it's broken, not in fury, but in purpose. Your protector isn't here to scream. They're here to finish it, They're here to correct the story. They're here to rewrite the chapters where you were the victim, the chapters where they thought they won, the parts where your silence was mistaken for surrender. This isn't revenge, it's reckoning. This isn't justice in a courtroom, it's judgment in the battlefield of truth. This is the moment where the wolves stop hiding. This is the moment where the one behind the curtain steps into the light, not to be seen, but to see. And what they see, they end. So ask yourself this: what side of this story are you on? Are you still hoping the storm passes? Or are you becoming it? Because if this protector walked with you, and if their rise now shakes the ground under your enemies, then you too are not what they think. You too are a force pretending to be fragile. You too are a weapon trained in silence. Let them run. Let them spin their stories. Let them cling to the last pieces of the false image they painted of you. It won't matter, because when the protector rises, so do the truths they buried. So does the wrath they earned. So does the clarity they feared. You didn't lose your protector. You unleashed them. And what comes next? That's what they should be afraid of. They thought they understood power, but what they feared was control. What they feared was an image they could manipulate, because to them, power only had value if it could be tamed, if it could be bought, shaped, or silenced. But true power doesn't speak in volumes. It speaks in moments, in presence, in the way a room shifts when someone real walks in. And when your protector stepped forward, everything changed. Not because they announced themselves, but because their existence demanded recognition. There were no warnings, no declarations, only a calm that made even the loudest enemies forget their words. A calm so sharp, it felt like judgment itself. They didn't rage, they didn't cry, they simply moved. And that movement shattered illusions. Because when strength stops explaining itself, fear takes its place. Your protector became a mirror, one that reflected everything the world tried to hide. And when the masks began to crack, so did the control. People who built their lives on lies, people who thrived in the dark, now found themselves under the unforgiving light of someone who no longer had to hold back. That's the moment they realized the truth. They weren't afraid of your protector because of what they did. They were afraid of what they could have done all along. The restraint was the terror. The silence was the threat. The patience was the warning. Because the most dangerous person in the room is not the one who shouts. It's the one who watches. It's the one who knows what you've done, what you said, what you are, and doesn't flinch, doesn't shake, doesn't need to announce the storm, because they are the storm. And now the world is starting to learn what you always knew, that behind the quiet, behind the patience, behind the forgiveness, there was a war machine waiting not to be unleashed, but provoked. And now it's here. They underestimated the power of someone who's been wounded, who's been used, and yet still chose to protect. Because once that protector stops protecting the wrong people, once they start choosing themselves, there is no more balance, no more mercy, no more second chances, just purpose, just precision, just consequences. Your protector was forged in silence. They were trained through betrayal, built in the shadows. While they watched others lie, manipulate, and twist reality to suit themselves, they were learning how to break it all down. Not with chaos, but with clarity. Not with noise, but with certainty. That's why they're terrifying, because they don't need an army. They are the consequence. They are the final word. They are the hand that writes the last chapter of the story. And in that chapter, there is no plea bargain, there is no negotiation, there is no please understand. There is only, this is what you earned, this is what you built. Now, watch it burn. And you stood by, you believed, you kept your head down when others shouted, you waited when others struck, you stayed loyal when others vanished, and because of that, you were underestimated too. But not anymore, because when your protector rose, so did you. When they stopped holding back, so did you. When they turned and faced the wolves, you didn't flinch. You stepped forward. You see, the truth isn't just that your protector became their worst nightmare. It's that you did too. They may still think it was a one-person storm. But they're wrong. This was always a chain reaction, a silent uprising, a reckoning written in the dark. Because now they're not facing a protector. They're facing every moment they ignored, every boundary they crossed, every warning they laughed at. And when you rise beside that protector, you don't just become stronger, you become untouchable, because you no longer carry fear. You no longer beg for understanding. You no longer seek approval. You see everything for what it is, and that makes you lethal in a world built on delusion. The protector they feared is not your bodyguard. They are your reflection, the version of you that chose growth over comfort, fire over approval, war over surrender. And now the war has arrived. But it's not a war of violence. It's a war of truth. Because once the truth shows its face, once it walks through the fire they tried to bury you in, it doesn't just survive, it commands. Let them shake. Let them whisper. Let them call you changed. Because yes, you are changed. You are finally who you were always meant to be. And now that your protector has stopped hiding, now that they've removed the limits, the filters, the chains, there's only one thing left to say. Let them remember your silence as mercy, because they will never forget your return as justice. The dust hasn't even settled, and already they're scrambling. Scrambling for explanations, for narratives, for anything that makes sense of what just happened. But they can't find it. Because the truth doesn't operate on their timelines. It doesn't show up for their convenience. It arrives like your protector did, uninvited, unrelenting, and undeniable. And deep down, they know what this means. They're not just afraid of what you are now. They're afraid of what you were the entire time. Because the greatest fear isn't that you've changed. It's that you've always been this powerful, this capable, this sovereign. And they never saw it. Or worse, they saw it and tried to suppress it. They tried to dim you, to shrink you, to use your empathy as a leash, your loyalty as a collar, your silence as their stage. But now, you've taken all those pieces back. You've gathered every fragment they fractured. And you've returned not as a victim, not as a survivor, but as a force. And the most beautiful part? You didn't need to become someone else. You simply remembered who you were. Your protector was never just another person. It was never just an ally. It was the dormant you. The version that kept watch while your light was being taken for weakness. The part of you that waited, patiently, painfully, for the right moment to remind the world that you are not to be handled. You are to be respected. You are not a lesson. You are the consequence of ignoring the lessons. That's what terrifies them. Because they can't defeat you anymore. Not with silence. Not with manipulation. Not with distortion. You see them now, fully. You see through them. And once you see through someone, you can never unsee them. You'll never beg again. You'll never doubt again. you'll never need them again. That's why your return is their nightmare. Because now, the chains don't fit, the rooms feel smaller, the old roles feel foreign, the lies don't land, because you don't belong in their world anymore, and they can't reach you in yours. That's the price of awakening, and it's worth it. Because even though the awakening cost you everything, your comfort, your illusions, your attachments, it gave you something priceless. It gave you clarity, and clarity is a weapon, sharper than anger, colder than revenge, stronger than forgiveness. Clarity doesn't ask for permission. It walks into a room and rewrites the atmosphere. It says, I am here. I am not who you thought, and I am not afraid. That's what they see when they look at you now. That's what their shaking hands can't grasp. You're not angry. You're not emotional. You're done. And that stillness, that terrifying stillness they now feel when you speak, when you walk, when you refuse to react, that's not emptiness. That's discipline. That's power contained. That's a God learning how to walk among mortals without burning the ground they stand on. Your protector didn't destroy everything. They revealed everything. The false alliances, the smiling enemies, the carefully crafted masks, the roles you were forced into, the lies you were sold to keep you small, quiet, controllable. They didn't burn your world. They freed you from the illusion that it was ever truly yours to begin with. So don't mourn the old world. Let it rot. Don't grieve the old version of you. Thank it and leave it behind. Because what's coming is bigger than survival. It's about dominion. It's about rebuilding, but on your terms. They won't recognize you in this next season, and they shouldn't, because the new you doesn't exist to be recognized. The new you exists to be remembered, not through fame, not through performance, through presence. When you walk into the room, the air will shift. When you speak, silence will follow. Because those who knew the old you will know immediately. This is not someone to cross. This is not someone to doubt. This is someone who remembers every betrayal, every lie, every dismissal. And instead of letting it rot their soul, they forged a weapon from it, not to harm, but to end. End cycles, end manipulation, end the era of pretending. You are not here to play a part anymore. You are here to rewrite the script. And the protector? They are simply your shadow now, following silently, faithfully, with eyes like fire, and a patience that makes even time tremble. Because there is one more secret that's just now being understood. There is one more secret that's just now being understood. The real reason they're afraid, the reason they can't sleep, why their confidence crumbles in your presence, why their words now sound hollow, even to themselves. It isn't just that the protector revealed their strength. It's that the protector was always them. Every time they dismissed you, every time they crossed the line, every time they lied with a smile, they weren't afraid someone would stop them. They were afraid that you would stop accepting it. They didn't fear the protector outside of you. They feared the moment you'd merge with it, the moment you'd stop holding back, the moment you'd step into alignment with the force that's been walking beside you in silence all this time. Because once you did, there would be no return. And now, that moment is here. You're no longer waiting to be saved because you became the savior. You're no longer hiding behind the protector because you are the protector. You're no longer hoping for justice because you carry it. You deliver it. And in this new version of you, there are no apologies left. Not for being powerful, Not for being clear, not for being done. You don't explain anymore. You don't justify anymore. You move, you choose, you act. And with every step forward, the old world collapses behind you. That's not a loss. That's evolution. Let it collapse. Let the ones who misunderstood you watch from behind glass as you rise without noise or permission. Let the ones who tried to shape you into something manageable now face the truth that you were never built to be held. You were forged to lead. You were born with fire, buried under patience, born with precision, buried under politeness, born with vision, buried under expectation. And now, every layer that hid your depth has burned away. Now, you walk in truth, and truth doesn't flinch. Truth doesn't beg. Truth doesn't need permission to exist. That is your final form, not rage, not revenge, but unapologetic reality. And reality is what they fear most. Because the lies only worked when you were pretending not to see. The manipulation only worked when you needed something from them. But now, you need nothing. Not validation, not approval, not forgiveness. You've crossed that line. You've passed through the storm. You've met the version of yourself that is no longer waiting, and that version doesn't walk the earth hoping to be understood. That version rewrites the landscape. And now that you've merged with it, now that you are no longer separate from your protector, but are the protector, you have become a reality they cannot unmake. The final warning is not a threat, it is a reminder that peace is still on the table, but peace on your terms. Peace that doesn't require you to shrink. Peace that doesn't ask you to forget. Peace that doesn't cost your dignity. If they want that kind of peace, they will have to earn it. But if they try again, if they come back with their masks, their games, their pretty lies dressed as apologies, then they won't meet the old you. They'll meet consequence. They'll meet the full weight of the silence they abused. They'll meet the dark certainty of a protector who is already forgiven, but will not forget. This isn't darkness for the sake of fear. This isn't wrath for the sake of ego. This is balance. This is the answer the universe gives to those who feed off of others. Because even the kindest soul has a limit. Even the softest heart can become a fortress. Even a protector gets tired of protecting the wrong people. So now you protect yourself. You rise not to punish, but to prevent history from repeating. You rise to honor what you've been through. You rise not as a warning, but as a reminder that no matter how long you are underestimated, no matter how deeply they bury you in stories, lies, or control, no matter how loud they become, truth doesn't expire, power doesn't fade, and protectors, they don't vanish. They wait. They wait for the moment their silence becomes the sound of reckoning, and that sound is now. This is your moment, not the beginning of something new, but the return of what was always there. They were right to fear your protector, because now the secret's out. Your protector didn't become a monster, they became you, fully realized, fully awakened, fully unleashed. And that is something they will never be able to cage again. So here we are, at the edge of everything they never saw coming, the end, or maybe finally, the beginning. Because when your protector revealed themselves, when they stepped out from behind the curtain of silence, kindness, and restraint, it didn't mark the start of a war. It marked the end of a lie, the lie that you were fragile, that you were lost, that you needed saving, the lie that they could harm you without consequence, that they could write your story for you, that they could label you, frame you, define you. They believed in that lie because it made them feel powerful. But now they've seen what real power looks like. It doesn't shout. It doesn't flail. It doesn't waste time proving anything. It arrives, and everything around it shifts. You see, the protector was never just a character in your story. It was never just a force outside of you, never a savior riding in from the distance. The protector was your truth, hidden beneath layers of survival, silence, and self-sacrifice. It was the version of you that knew the moment would come when you'd have to stop protecting everyone else and finally start protecting yourself. That moment has come, and the world will feel it, because when a soul like yours stops shrinking, when a voice like yours stops hesitating, when a heart like yours stops breaking and starts building, there is no force that can contain it. You don't need their approval anymore. You don't need to explain why you're standing taller, walking quieter, seeing clearer. You don't need to ask for room. You take it. Because now, the protector is not just part of you. The protector is you. You've earned this transformation through pain, through betrayal, through quiet nights spent doubting your worth, through days of swallowing your truth just to make others comfortable. But not anymore. Now the truth walks with you. Now the fire doesn't burn you. It follows you. Now the silence doesn't cage you. It commands the space around you. And as for them, they'll talk. They'll whisper. They'll try to rewrite the story. Let them. Because you won't be in the room to argue. You'll be too far ahead, too focused, too elevated. They thought the protector was someone to fear? Wait until they meet the version of you that no longer needs to be feared, because you've become something more powerful. You've become untouchable. You've become inevitable. You've become the living proof that no matter how much they take from someone, they can't take what awakens when truth returns. And now, truth has returned. Through you, around you, as you. So walk. Not for revenge, not for recognition, but for everything that tried to bury you and failed. Because they were right about one thing: the protector is here, and they should be terrified.